Hello. Once again, theorists, welcome to Matpat Plays. Today we are playing the scariest game of all creation. Probably never heard of it. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's. Here we go. What's this? It's a camera. The camera came up. Oh, was that a bunny? Was that a bunny? I think it was a bunny. Oh my gosh. I am so scared right now. Oh god! Oh, it was only the fan. It's only the fan. Only a fan. I have never played a game this intense. Oh god! Shut the doors, shut the doors, shut the doors! Oh, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. I'm so scared right now, I'm so scared. Can you tell how scared I am right now? Okay, we're good. Oh! God! Just the fan! Just the fan! I don't know about you, but every time the camera makes the sound to come up, I pee a little bit in my pants. What? That's it? That's it? It's a jump scare? It's a little bunny rabbit jump scare. What?
Well, this little thing is impossible. Stupid beauty mark.
Is is it all normal now? Okay. Ooh, beautiful.
Really? Really? Alright. I mean, oh god, it's so terrifying. Oh, there's the bunny rabbit. Shut my door. Man, this is truly compelling gameplay. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm almost out of power. 11% and it's 5 a.m. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Oh, please don't get me, Freddy. Please don't get me, Freddy. Come on.
Bro,
This
who
what
is
it
that?
takes to get views on YouTube.
That does not sound like Matpats. Oh, no wonder.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where fear is our middle name. Matthew
But
Fear
that's just
Patrick.
a
It's a very
theory, a
strange name.
game
Okay, I'll
theory.
admit it. I didn't give Five Nights at Freddy's enough credit when it first came out. A few jump scares from creatures that, aren't that scary.
Yeah, sure.
People overreacting to it on YouTube? Meh, pass. But then when I asked you about it, you showed overwhelming support for an episode on the game on Twitter, so I began to dig a little deeper and deeper. And what I found was some of the most interesting storytelling, most intriguing mysteries, and most disturbing events I'd read about in a long time. Now, if you were just to play the game straight through 5 days, the story would actually
Oh, someone just going to just use their ult.
actually come across as pretty superficial. You're the new night guard watching the security cameras at a Chuck E. Cheese style restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. 4 animatronics roam the halls at night because the owners don't want their servos to lock up. Bad news is, you can't let them near you or else they'll kill you on the spot because you look like a naked endoskeleton. Ow, ow, show them those circuits. Apparently, one of them bit someone back in 87, presumably 1987. And the past guard leaves you recorded phone messages to act as your tutorial. That is, as much as he could record before he got himself killed. And that's it. Stay 5 nights, collect your paycheck, done, game over, play something new. But playing it that way is doing the game a huge disservice, because that's not even scratching the surface. If you're really observant, you start to unravel the layers of unsolved mysteries around this place. You find that there's a 5th animatronic, that posters on the wall will change randomly, that news clippings appear and disappear, telling the dark secrets of this twisted place. Putting it all together, here's the rest of the story. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, once a popular restaurant, fell into hard times when 5 children went missing there after being lured to a back room by a man dressed in a character costume. Though a suspect was caught and convicted, the bodies of the children were never recovered. The pizzeria was also threatened with shutdown due to sanitation complaints, as foul odors started to come from the animatronics, blood and mucus oozing from their eyes and mouths. The last article, written years after the incident, states that the pizzeria would finally be closed by year end. In addition to the core 4 robots, Chica, Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy, there's also a 5th, unofficially referred to as Golden Freddy. Ignoring the rules of physics, Golden Freddy appears and disappears at will, can inexplicably travel through doors, wherever, causing strange hallucinations. And when he attacks you, you're not taken to the typical game over screen, your game crashes. So that's unsettling. And there's also strange messages appearing on the walls, repeating the words, "It's me." According to the game's creator, the place is indeed haunted by what we can only assume to be the spirits of the 5 lost children. So that's the gist of it. Murder, missing children, foul odors, killer robots, and pizza. But that story leaves a lot of lingering questions. Who is your character? How's he fit in? Why does he stay for 5 nights when he's very clearly confronting the possibility of death? What more can we know about this terrifying Golden Freddy? And most importantly, what is the complete story behind 5 Nights at Freddy's? They're all good questions about a delightfully incomplete and mysterious story with just enough threads to keep you theorizing. So now, if you'll indulge me, let me reciprocate that story with one of my own. I think you'll find it interesting. December 1993, Aurora, Colorado. 10 p.m. Tuesday night at a local Chuck E. Cheese. After a family birthday party runs long, manager Margaret Kohlberg and teenage employees Sylvia Crowell, Ben Grant,
I do not care.
Colleen O'Connor, and Bobby Stevens are forced to stay late to close up shop. But as Margaret tallies receipts in the back, Bobby scrubs down the kitchen, and the other 3 work outside in the main arcade. Unknown to any of the 5, there's actually a 6th person locked in the building with them, waiting silently in the darkened restrooms. A 19-year-old named Nathan Dunlap. Earlier that year, Nathan had begun working there as a cook, dough master, before getting fired in July after a disagreement over his hours. Now, 5 months later, he was back. At 10:05, he left the bathroom, pulled out a small caliber handgun, and proceeded to execute everyone in the building. First Sylvia, then Ben, then Colleen. Dunlap then moved to the kitchen, where he surprised Bobby Stevens. The bullet entered Bobby's jaw, sending him sprawling onto the ground. Then finally, Nathan moved to the back, the office, where Margaret opened the safe before Nathan shot her twice, proceeded to grab her bag, filling it with $1,600 in cash, arcade tokens, and keychains. Spurred on by the building security footage, police were at his home a few hours later, where he was promptly arrested. Eventually, he was tried and sentenced to death, but his story re-entered the news just recently as his punishment has been postponed, leading people to debate whether he's able to sleep soundly, knowing that his execution has been delayed. This is a tragic story, a disgusting waste of human life, and one that I won't joke about or make fun of in any way, but I want to address it because I have a strong suspicion that this story is the the one that inspired Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's look at the facts. First, I don't think that there's any doubt that Freddy's is a parody of Chuck E. Cheese. From the singing animatronics to the alliterative naming of the characters, the parallels are just obvious, so the setting is certainly the same. Next, what year does Five Nights take place? The time is certainly kept vague, but there are clues that we can put together. For one, the Chuck E. Cheese franchise had a tremendous period of growth and success in the late 80s and early 90s, but started to decline along the same time as arcades, with at-home video game consoles taking center stage. So that's one clue, but we can get even more detailed, specifically with your character's paycheck. Each night you're working a 6-hour shift, and you're spending 5 nights there. So that's 30 hours of total work time for $120. In total, $4 an hour. How can they do that? That's below minimum wage for 2014. But in 1990, minimum wage was $3.80. In 1991, it was raised to $4.25. And by 1996, you were looking at about $5 an hour. So the game seems to take place between 1991 and 1996. The Nathan Dunlap story took place in 1993. But let's move on to the most important comparison, the victims. In the game, there were 5 child victims. In the real-life story, there were also 5 victims. But we can get even more specific. Online theories about the game always tend to draw a parallel between the number of kids missing to the number of animatronics, saying that the children's bodies were stuffed in the various suits. And this appears to be true. Bonnie and Chica both have moans and raspy breath sound effects, as though someone's trying to cling to the last threads of their lives stuffed inside the costumes. And other sounds made by the animatronics are just slowed down versions of children's laughs and screams. Additionally, as the news clipping mentions, the suits ooze blood and mucus and begin to stink, like decaying bodies or reanimated corpses. So 5 victims, 5 suits, seems like a slam dunk, but nowhere does it say that all 5 were murdered, only that they went missing and couldn't be found. Also, the trouble a lot of people have with this theory is Golden Freddy. Why is that guy so limp and lifeless? So unlike the others. It's weird, until you go back to the real life story. Yes, there were 5 people shot that night in Chuck E. Cheese, which matches the 5 victims in Freddy's story, but of those, 1 survived. Bobby, the one from the kitchen, miraculously survived the shot to his jaw. After he was knocked to the floor by the bullet, he went limp, played dead, to avoid the killer coming back to finish the job. And that relates exactly to the advice you're given on night 3 by the phone guy.
Try playing dead. You know, go limp.
Again, let me reiterate that I'm not trying to make light of the real-life events by comparing them to bear costumes and animatronics, but I do want to point out that these similarities do exist. And what else is limp and appears to be a lifeless, empty suit in the game? Golden Freddy. Surviving the attack, Bobby was able to go to trial and be a damning piece of evidence in the case against Nathan Dunlap, ultimately leading to his death sentence. Which animatronic surprises you by appearing randomly? The one you don't expect and has no clear pattern? Golden Freddy. It's also worth mentioning that of all the cameras in the restaurant, one is always black, preventing you from seeing what's going on. That camera is located in the kitchen, leading many to assume it's where Golden Freddy hides, which just so happens to be the place Bobby was able to survive the attack. So I ask, odd coincidence or source of inspiration? In fact, if you think about it, the behavior of the animatronics really corresponds with key features of each of the real-life story's victims. We just covered Golden Freddy and Bobby, but the rest have strange parallels too. Bonnie goes into the utility closet filled with floor cleaning supplies, the most prominent ones being a mop and a broom. It's probably one of the most random rooms in the game, until you consider that Ben, the second victim, was vacuuming at the time of the attack. Foxy is kept sequestered in the back of the building, behind a curtain, more aggressive than all the rest, similar to the way Margaret, the manager, was in the back office counting receipts at the time of the murder, and her role as manager would inherently make her more aggressive or assertive. Sylvia was closest to the bathroom and was cleaning up the salad bar at the time of the attack. Chica walks past the bathroom and is associated with food. And Freddy, well, he doesn't have that strong of a parallel with Colleen, but he does appear in the girls' restroom. Odd for what we would assume to be a male animatronic. Maybe it's a reference to Colleen being a girl, or a nod to Nathan's plan of hiding in the bathroom until he was ready to attack. Alright, after doing all the research, reading every fan theory in existence, and putting all the clues together, what can this mean for the story of the game? I think the game is an allegory for that night back in 1993. Here's my final interpretation. You, Mike Schmidt, are the murderer, former employee of Freddy's Pizzeria. Like Nathan in the real story, you were fired for the reason stated in the Day 7 pink slip, tampering with the animatronics, being unprofessional, odor. Maybe it was your tampering with the robots that caused the infamous bite of 87. Regardless, like Nathan, you were mad and wanted to get even. So you lured children to the back using a costume, killed them, stuffed their bodies into the animatronic suits, hoping to get the place shut down, then left. Notice that the newspaper clippings never say it's an employee of the company luring the children away, but we know it must have been someone with access and knowledge of the employees only section of the building. And as the newspaper clippings clearly show, just like Nathan, you were caught almost immediately, captured on the security footage. You were arrested, tried, and convicted, forced now to live on death row. The Freddy's Pizzeria you work in now are just the nightmares that haunt you, taunting you every night with the phrase, "It's me, it's me." Door. Man, this is truly compelling gameplay. Else is limp and appears to be a light room and was cleaning up the set. Shut down, then left. Notice that the haunting you as the one that got away. Work in now are just the nightmares that haunt you, taunting you every night with the phrase, "It's me, it's me." It is you. You are the killer. The nightmare is also why everything is so surreal. Posters switching at random, heads on the animatronics glitching, Golden Freddy appearing and disappearing at will, taunting you as the one that got away. It's also why you're only at the pizzeria from midnight to 6 a.m. every night. It's a nightmare. It's in your sleep. It's a place you created, a restaurant long closed as evidenced by the spider webs, and overrun with angry spirits out for revenge on you and you alone as the one who took their lives, as evidenced by them completely ignoring the naked endoskeleton elsewhere in the building. It's also a place you can't escape from, why you find yourself back there night after night, even after you complete your 5 nights. See you back next week, the ending text goes. You're unable to leave this terror, the threat of death, the guilt, because it never ends. And in a delightfully ironic twist, your personal hell forces you to supervise the exact same security footage that led to your capture in the first place. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Sweet dreams.
Hello? Hello? Oh, hello, and welcome to the new and improved Five Nights at Freddy's 2 video. I'm here to answer any questions the game may have left unanswered. The game's developer, he's a pretty tricky guy. Don't worry, though. We'll get everything cleared up. Oh, and, watch out for the puppet.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that promises not to include any more gratuitous jump scares, unless that's just what I want you to think, so I can lull you into a false sense of security and scare you again. But I wouldn't do that. I'll just let the uncertainty of whether a jump scare is going to happen or not drive you insane for the rest of this episode. Man, I love reverse psychology. You know what else I love? These games! Not because I'm freaked out by the rosy-cheeked, tingle-looking, emotionally dead animatronics. Okay, well, Balloon Kid is pretty messed up, but whatever. No, what I appreciate about these games is the level of thought that went into every element of the story. When you create a game that has people rage debating about whether it's a sequel or a prequel, you've definitely done something right. Unless that was never your intent, in which case you've done something horribly, horribly wrong. Anyway, the point is, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 looks to be everything you'd want in a sequel. More cameras, more danger, and more fan. Oh, the fan. But that also comes with more questions. Questions about the game's lore. And while others will provide you with the jump scares, I provide you with what everyone really wants, answers. Well, maybe not everyone. What an elite, educated subset of you really want, answers. So grab yourselves a slice of Freddy Fazbear's signature pizza, cause we're about to dig in. Ugh, tastes like cardboard. Let's get the big one out of the way first. Is the game a sequel or a prequel sequel? And what I mean by that is, contrary to popular belief, just because it has a big 2 slapped next to the name doesn't automatically mean the game comes after the first one in a timeline sense. It's a sequel, yes, but it tells a prequel story. Take for instance these all-time classics, Psycho 4: The Beginning, Lion King 1.5, and the actual all-time classic Godfather Part 2. All of them sequels that just so happen to also be prequels. It's not mutually exclusive, so where's Five Nights at Freddy's 2 fit in? Knowing its place in the timeline is crucial for understanding its story. Well, to figure that out, let's focus on the paycheck you receive at the end of your 5th night. The date places the events of the game in 1987, a whole 6 years ahead of when we determined the first game took place in our first video. Sounds like a prequel, but we found that date in the first game by calculating Mike Schmidt's hourly pay and comparing that to the minimum wage of the 90s. If Scott Coffin, the game's developer, is just picking random numbers for the payments, this bit of evidence would be meaningless. Except that he's not. At the end of Five Nights 2, you get paid $100.50. Divide that by the 30 hours worked and you get $3.35 an hour, the exact minimum wage for 1987, which means that us using minimum wage calculations to identify the year of Five Nights 1 is a perfectly valid way to prove it, and shows that it takes place after the events of Five Nights 2. Still don't believe me? Players brave enough to survive the extra night 6 are rewarded with a bonus check and a newspaper clipping that says the toy robots are getting scrapped, and that the old ones are going into storage for a new, smaller scale version of the restaurant. That would explain why the old models reappear in Five Nights 1 and the toy models don't. And notice how it mentions a smaller version of the restaurant. The building in Five Nights 1 is significantly smaller than the setting of Five Nights 2. Need more evidence? What about the fact that on the first night in the office, the phone guy explains that the robots used to walk around during the day just like they do in Five Nights 2, but not anymore. Or the fact that phone guy dies in the first game, making it hard for him to also be the phone guy in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 if it takes place after. Call me the Phantom Menace, cause every way to Sunday, this game is a prequel. So with that revelation out of the way, we're able to piece together the rest of the timeline and dig a little bit deeper. Posters everywhere in Five Nights 2 welcome you to this new location, implying that there was another Freddy Fazbear's Pizza somewhere before this one. Additionally, the phone guy makes reference to it on night 1, mentioning the old location and how it was left to rot. So we know that there was one Freddy Fazbear's Pizza for the first game, one for the second game, and one that came before both of them that we've never seen. But even before that, the phone guy also mentions an even older restaurant called Fredbear's Family Diner, which, aside from its confusingly different name, also had different owners. So let me recap. There's the restaurant from the first game, which is the last in the time.
I'm an idiot. I'm really an idiot. I can't. How did I mess that up? Oh my god.
Timeline. The one that you're currently working at in 1987 in Five Nights 2, an older location of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria left to rot, and the original Fredbear's Diner. Jeez, I hope you're still with me because this is more complicated than the Zelda timeline. Anyway, it's at this first location, the diner, where the whole story begins. Submitted for the approval of the Game Theorists Society, this is the true tale of Five Nights at Freddy's. When you die in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, before you've even gotten over the jump scare, you sometimes get a screen like this. Oh, turn it off! Turn it off, it's too horrifying. That, youngsters, was E.T. for the Atari, a console that came out before the NES. Yes, around the same time as the dinosaurs. It's widely considered to be the worst game of all time, hence me reacting in a horrified manner. See? Humor, folks. But seriously, you get these disturbing death minigames which, true to the 1987 setting, use Atari-esque graphics to depict various horrific events. All the while, a creepy robotic voice spells out letter by letter things like help them, save them, or save him. These death minigames are the most important piece in figuring out the true story behind these games. Let's start with this one. This death minigame has you playing as Freddy, taking cake to screaming children at a birthday party. As Freddy rushes around trying to keep the whole party happy, a single sad child...
Hold on, before we do this, I'm gonna keep you guys there and I'm gonna turn off this one will capture real quick, and I'm just gonna have a break video on Stag just in case I have to go somewhere. Goof troop FNAF time. Okay. Okay, we're chilling. Okay, I think we're chilling now. This here and then
looks on from outside, when suddenly you're powerless to do anything but look on in abject horror as a purple man pulls up in a car, murders the child, and drives off. It's my belief, loyal theorists, that this game takes place at Fredbear's Diner, and is chronologically the first event that we see in this timeline. How do I know? Well, it's a small establishment, and there's only one animatronic, Freddy, as opposed to all the other games which show other robots. But more importantly, this murdered child is the one that sets
this is not
everything
Fredbear's Family Diner.
One
It
of the
could
new
be a
tasks
completely
added
different
to Five Nights
restaurant
at
that we
Freddy's
have
2
no
is
clue.
winding a mysterious music box that we're told placates one of the animatronics. If you fail to wind the music box, what you're introduced to is this terrifying thing. The puppet looks like No-Face from Spirited Away. You know what else he looks like? Take a look at that murdered child again. See how his tear tracks remain visible on his face, even after he's dead? If we assume that they'll continue to stay with him into the afterlife, we can make a pretty good case that this kid's murdered spirit eventually found its way into the puppet animatronic. But that's not all. What jump scare happens after this Save Him minigame? After seeing this tear-stained child's murder reenacted in 8-bit, the puppet jumps out of the screen and attacks you. Coincidence? I don't think so. That incident marks the first time the chain is ever associated with a violent act carried out against a child, and we can infer that it was this incident that caused the original owners of Fredbear's Diner to sell off to the company now known as Fazbear Entertainment. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was senselessly murdered and left to haunt a crappy pizza place for the rest of my life in the body of an awful-looking clown doll, I'd want to get my revenge as soon as possible. Unfortunately for our vengeful puppet, though, it doesn't quite turn out that way. Fast forward a few years to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the first location, the one that has yet to appear in a game. This new restaurant is the one we learned about in my earlier episode and throughout the first game, where our pal the murderer uses a golden Freddy suit to lure away and kill 5 children in the back room. As we read through the various articles on the wall, he gets caught the next day, but the bodies are never found, presumably because they've been stuffed into the animatronic suits. The restaurant stays open for a few months until the dead body stink starts to waft off the robots and causes the place to get shut down for health reasons. But how do we know this happened in the first pizzeria's location? Again, we turn to what the phone guy says. On night 2 of Five Nights 2, he mentions the smell coming from the old animatronics, the smell that got the original restaurant shut down. We also know that after the Golden Freddy incident, it took multiple months for the restaurant to get shut down. That couldn't have happened in the restaurant of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which is shut down on night 6 and into the foreseeable future. But outside of these lore clues, it also makes logical sense. Before the Golden Freddy murders, there was one dead child whose tear-stained soul existed in the form of a puppet. But now there are 5 more dead children, and thanks to another of the death minigames, we find out exactly what happened to them. In the Help Them minigame, the puppet stuffs the dead children into the robotic suits, giving their souls new life, and preps them for their eternal mission of vengeance. But Matpat, you say through your chattering teeth, there are only 4 dead children in that game. To which I tell you, look closer, if you dare. For the frame right before Golden Freddy's head jumps out and attacks features the lost 5th dead child, and what started as a haunted puppet has suddenly become an army of possessed animatronics out for revenge. But wait, that's not all we know. We also know the murder was committed by the same guy who killed the first child. How? Look at the Foxy death minigame. Twice, Foxy runs out to meet the kids, but the 3rd time we see the tall purple man again. Smiling, Foxy goes into the other room to find 5 dead children. The man in purple strikes again. Skip ahead to 1987, finally bringing us to the events of Five Five Nights at Freddy's
I hate
2,
that
the
purple
old
man.
animatronics have been retired, and the cute new versions of all our favorite friends
Wait, what?
come equipped with facial recognition software
What? That's not the
that just so
teaser?
happens to
Whatever.
be connected to a sex offender database.
What?
Seems like an oddly specific detail,
Huh.
right?
You heard him.
Consider that the last restaurant was
that's
closed for having
wild.
children get kidnapped and killed by an employee. It's a safety measure. You see how it all ties together? So you have some animatronics possessed by vengeful
Okay.
spirits
That's
and
kind of
another batch on
alright.
the prowl
Hold on, I'm
for
gonna mute real
predators.
quick.
But that doesn't stop our friend the Purple Man from continuing his life's work of murdering children at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. As we learn from the phone guy on nights 4 through 6, the new restaurant is once again under investigation as, well, I'll let him explain.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down.
Released for a while.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a
Yeah,
yellow
but-
one. Someone
Where
used
is
it.
it? Oh.
Now none of them are acting right.
The Golden Freddy Killer struck
The
again.
Golden Freddy.
The final death minigame also supports this. You, as Freddy, must walk through an exact replica of the building. Animatronics all in their proper
Okay.
places, seeing the 5 dead children spread out through the various rooms. And based on what Phone Guy says, it seems like the guilty party was the former night guard, the one who moved to
I'm actually gonna go get some food real quick because I'm really hungry right now. So I'm gonna put us onto
Okay.
a break. Yeah. So I'm just gonna play it.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Hey you. You look like you're interested in some FNAF lore. Sick of all the speculation? Do you want something that's undeniably canon? Oh. Well, that's too bad. I'm telling you anyway. The year was 1983, January to be exact. Local nobodies Henry Emily and William Afton were walking down the streets of Hurricane, Utah, when suddenly they noticed that not once in their life have they ever caught a glimpse of a yellow grizzly bear. It was then their fates were sealed, and they knew that they must fulfill their destiny. Henry and William were something of robotics enthusiasts, so they finally used their untapped potential to create the most realistic animatronic bear imaginable. On their first attempt, they made a decrepit, muddy yellow bear with giant teeth and claws. This wasn't realistic. William, however, remembered that in the trunk of his car rested a cluster of discs that could emit audio frequencies that would fool people into seeing real bears. They slapped those bad boys on this animatronic, and suddenly it took the form of the beautiful golden grizzly, who they then named Ferdinand von Bernard. Not only did he look the part and have a voice like honey butter, but the mind-altering audio accidentally gave him sentience and cosmic power beyond our human understanding. This was very dangerous, but the partners in furry shenanigans were not swayed. That is, until the entire town evacuated at the sight of this golden beast. Turns out, people are scared of loose bears. Who would have thunk it? Of course, this fear wasn't for nothing. Ferdinand was caught dining on a local restaurant owner, and he fled from the crime scene before law enforcement could get to him. William and Henry realized they had been a slight bit overzealous with their first creation. Good thing is, literally nobody knew or cared who they were, so they got away with this scot-free. Later that month, they designed an animatronic simply based on Ferdinand's likeness. This character was quite a downgrade, being both simpler and stupider. This didn't matter to the duo, though, as they loved their creation, and with that, Fredbear was born. At first, they had nowhere to actually put him, so they opted for the dump. He was truly a diamond in the rough. Amazingly, this attempt at entertainment was amusing enough to the citizens of Hurricane that they gave William and Henry enough money to afford a recently vacated diner space. Fredbear was going to be a star. Unfortunately, this animatronic was extremely poorly designed, and their attempts at granting him artificial intelligence quickly turned sour. On February 31st, 1983, his first performance on stage in front of children prompted him to spontaneously combust from a nervous breakdown. William and Henry, heartbroken at this tragic event, cracked down to ensure this would never happen again. This also prompted William to threaten the United States government, and they met his demands to strike February 31st from the calendar forever. After that, they set their sights on making something with no flaws. But then they made springlock suits. In an attempt to both ease the animatronic's nerves and not allow them their legally required breaks, Henry and William created mechanisms that could lock the endoskeleton parts to the inner edges of the suit for a person to climb inside and cover for the character. For extra safety precautions, they created a partner for the new Fredbear 2.0 to ease his nerves. For some reason, the best name they came up with for Fredbear's partner was Spring Bonnie. William was insistent on this name, and Henry felt too threatened to argue against it. Where the safety precautions ended, however, was the fact that the spring locks holding the endoskeleton pieces away from a person's vital organs were made out of paper clips, and the lightest sneeze could set them off. Truly brilliant inventors, those two. The dynamic duo had now created a dynamic duo. William was the only one who had the nerve to actually test the springlock suit, and it turned out he enjoyed dancing around as a yellow rabbit a little too much. Henry was unbothered by this though, as William was still perfectly capable of handling their finances in character. A few months had gone by, and Fredbear's Family Diner was an absolute success. Not only were Fredbear and Spring Bonnie beloved by the now enlightened Mormon population of Utah, William even managed to lock in a deal with a low-budget animation studio in order to make a cartoon called Fredbear and Friends. The one downside, though, was the studio needed more characters and they refused any more yellow ones. Out of obligation, Leopold, Theodore, Mirabella, and Foxy were created. No, Mirabella's not yellow, she's Xanthophil. You're just seeing things. Surely these blights to everything William and Henry stood for would never see the light of day in any other context. William and Henry were at their peak, and William finally regained custody of his children. However, one of his sons, whose name has been stricken from the record, waltzed into the back room of Fredbear's and saw Fredbear smoking a cigar. Fredbear's blatant nonchalance
Go back.
Day shift and the one your character replaced. I mean, Phone Guy makes plenty of uncomfortable references to suddenly having an available position during the day.
When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became available. We don't have a replacement for your shift yet, but we're working on it.
But is the Purple Man really someone we've never met, and who's only worked there a week? Or is it someone we trust? Someone with a long history with these characters? Someone no one would suspect? The head guard. The one forced to fill empty positions and teach new recruits by leaving them instructions over the phone. Is the Purple Man the Phone Guy? Ask yourself this. What do we really know about Phone Guy? Let's look at what he says. First, he always speaks like an outsider looking in. He refers to the management of the company as they. So he's not a higher up like the CEO or even a manager. But he's also not a typical day worker, as he says things like the employees and the staff. So he works there, but isn't generally considered a regular member of the company. We also know that he's qualified to take the role of a night guard. As we learn, he plans to take over the position sometime after night 6, and is on his way out of the position by the time the first game starts.
For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself. I actually worked in that office before you. I'm finishing up my last week now, as a matter of fact.
What else do
That
we
just
know?
proves
Well,
it's
we
a
know that
prequel.
Phone Guy has a long history with the company, being with it at least since the first pizzeria that we haven't played in. He also openly admits that Foxy the Pirate was always his favorite, and that he has never liked the puppet because, as he says, it was always thinking.
See, I told you wouldn't have any problems. Did, Foxy ever appear in the hallway? Probably not. I was just curious. Like I said, he was always my favorite. I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere.
Okay, but what do we know about the Purple Guy, the Golden Freddy Killer? Well, let's look at the minigames again. He has a long history with the franchise, killing since it was Fredbear Diner. We see him smiling as he watches Foxy perform, Phone Guy's favorite, right before Foxy sees the room of dead children. We know that the puppet and the killer wouldn't get along, which would explain Phone Guy's discomfort around a creature that he describes as always thinking. And here's the bombshell. We know the killer is a security guard. How? On very rare occasions during the Save Them minigame, while Freddy chases the puppet, the Purple Man appears and chases you. Look on his chest. It's an orange badge, the kind that would be given to a security guard. Now look at his eyes. Notice the white spots? An odd, seemingly innocuous detail. But now look at Golden Freddy. Look deep into his dead, vacant eyes.
That's FNAF
See
for you,
two
bro.
white spots. Pinpricks, really. Barely visible. They're there. And now finally, what do we see in Purple Guy's hand? Well, the Atari graphics make it tough to discern. It's not like any gun or knife I've seen. No, that to me is very clearly a phone. The robotic voice is spelling out for you, save them. them, save them. But when Purple Guy, Phone Guy, catches you, the screen crashes and all you're left with is, you can't. But that's not where it ends, Internet. As you and I both know, there's still Five Nights at Freddy's 1. If this game is last in line and the puppet is truly pulling the strings behind all of this, you might be asking yourself where he is in Five Nights 1. We know the other animatronics got scrapped, but this ghostly guy should still be around if this timeline I proposed is correct. And get this, the puppet is in the first game. Take a look at the East Hallway. Seems pretty normal, right? But every so often, the posters on the walls change to this. A crying child with two streaming lines down his face. Look familiar? It should. The Five Nights at Freddy's series is about vengeance. One child, 6 children, more, looking for revenge against a sick child
What?
killer. The Purple Guy, the guy who just so happens to be the first voice you hear when turning on these games. Save them. Save them. You can't. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Make sure you wind the
Mm-mm. What? What? It's time.
It's time.
I don't have this written.
Hello, Internet.
I'll say
Welcome to Game Theory, where good things, or at least FNAF things, come to those who wait. And man, when it comes to this game series, no one was waiting for anything. I mean, the second game came out 3 months after the first, the trailer for the third was 2 months later, and like 4 minutes after that, the game was available to download. So forgive me if I was caught with my pants down on that one. I just wasn't prepared for it. But even more impressive than that abbreviated timeline was your ability to rip that final game apart. Hours after the release of the game, people were discussing good versus bad endings, 8-bit Atari cake, glitching through walls, and punching a flipping code into cement bricks arranged like a telephone dial pad. In regards to that last one, I have 2 things to say. First off, well done to you guys for figuring it out so quickly, and secondly, Scott, seriously. Seriously, Scott? Oh look, here's a wall. Let me just dial in my phone number. Beep boop boop beep boop boop. What? When did we jump from a point-and-click horror game to magical fantasy? This thing is like platform 9 3/4. I expect Harry effing Potter to apparate into Pirate's Cove or something. Jeez, here I was thinking that you'd plug your numbers into, the one other place that you see numbers in this game, the bonus jump scare menu, or something, anything, but nope, dialing it into a wall makes so much more sense. Okay, sorry, just needed to get that one off my chest. Moving on. Now, with 15 days at Freddy's under our belts and a few overtime hours clocked in for good measure, we have ourselves a completed video game trilogy, with the third game giving us more jump scares, more phone guy, and more fan. But this game also contains the final clues we need to get some closure on this game's deviously vague story. Scotty C certainly didn't make things any easier for us, but at this point I think we finally have enough puzzle pieces scattered across the 3 games to assemble a fairly accurate picture of this franchise's lore. Since you guys had a, let's just say, above average interest in this theory, I wanted to create something that answered as many questions as possible about this franchise. But beyond just the details, the question.
Let's go back and take a look.
Question.
What is the timeline of this game? We don't know. What's up with Golden Freddy? He's a ghost. What suit does the killer use? Golden Bonnie. What's the deal with the shadow animatronics? We don't know. What about the random naked endoskeleton? Golden Freddy. What happened with the bite of 87? It happened. Who is the purple guy? William Afton. Why is anyone doing a movie about this game? Of these games, bruh? I don't know.
As possible about this franchise. But beyond just the
Oh.
details, the question we all want an answer to is what exactly happened in the story throughout this series? It's a pretty fundamental question to not have an answer to, and yet, despite thousands of videos, forum entries, and Tumblr posts, hey, put that away, you behave yourself. This game is already scary enough without you sticking your hook somewhere it doesn't belong,
Get
okay?
out of
Despite
here.
all those things, we still don't have a clear picture on the details. Yes, there's a child killer on the loose, the infamous purple guy, who's been using Fazbear pizzerias as his hunting ground of choice for years, but going into the third game, we still weren't sure about who this guy was or even how many victims he'd officially taken. Then there are the animatronics. Sure, we generally understand that the killer's dead bodies have been stuffed into some of the suits, and that with the help of the puppet, the kids were able to find new life in those robotic bodies.
Yeah.
But then, what about Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy, who randomly appeared in FNAF 2 only to become prominent figures throughout Part 3? How do they fit in? What about the ghostly Golden Freddy, someone we've been talking about since the first game, and yet we still don't really know anything about him? Well, now that we finally have all the facts, I think it's time we revisit my timeline I presented in the last episode to see what I got right, what I got wrong. Yes, you heard that. Wrong. No shame.
Whoa.
I'm a big boy. Mommy, wow, I'm
Whoa.
a big kid now. And
Whoa,
finally fill in the
whoa,
missing
stop.
details to create what I
God.
believe to be my definitive Five Nights theory. And boy, howdy, it is a doozy. So strap in, theorists. You wanted it. You're about to get it. Overall, the timeline of the franchise I presented in the last video still holds strong. Decades before the name became a horror legend meriting its own theme park-style attraction, Freddy Fazbear got his start at Fredbear Family Diner. It's here where our story begins.
Fredbear
as Purple
Family
Guy
Diner.
takes his first victim. Something we see in the Take Cake minigame.
Fredbear
from Five Nights at
Family
Freddy's 2.
Diner.
What tells us that this is Fredbear's and first in the timeline? Well, as I said last time, in addition to it being a small space, the only character we see is Freddy, whereas all other minigames feature multiple animatronics. He's also holding a cupcake. Since that would later become Chica's signature item, the event
No, that's
depicted
a
in this
cake.
game must have come before she was created. Additionally, notice that the purple guy's murder takes place outside the building. This is the only time we see him murder someone outside the walls of a Fazbear building, which implies that this is likely his first victim. Serial killers often have what's known as a signature, a way of killing that's unique to him and him alone. For Purple Guy, his signature is dressing in an animatronic costume, then luring children to the back of the pizzeria and killing them there. But this murder occurs before he developed this particular style, implying that it's the first. From there, we know that the puppet
First one,
jump scare
Eddie.
that always follows this minigame, combined with the tier design on both the dead child and the puppet's mask, implies that the soul of the first child now exists in the puppet. The event caused the original owners to sell the Fredbear name, who then rebranded and avoided the negative PR, becoming what we know today as Fazbear Entertainment. They then opened a new chain of restaurants, which we never saw in the games until the release of Five Nights 3. This is not Fredbear Diner like many interpret, but rather the first location of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza,
Oh, this
predating
is
the events
100%
of Five
first-
Nights at Freddy's 2. How do we know? Well, by paying close attention to the old recordings of Phone Guy dug up in FNAF 3, he introduces us to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, not Diner, before explaining the functionality of the special spring lock suits.
Welcome to your new career as a performer/entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Right now, we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit.
He also lets us know that the animatronics are still allowed to walk around freely during the day, meaning that this is happening before the bite of 87, in which an animatronic bites someone during business hours, removing their frontal lobe and resulting in the animatronics being restricted to moving around only at night.
For ease of operation, the animatronics are set to turn and walk toward sound machines.
As Phone Guy informs us, and as we see in the Stage 01 minigame, there are two specialty suits, a Golden Bonnie suit and the origins of the infamous Golden Freddy. But the
Golden
lifespan of
Freddy.
these springlock suits is actually short-lived as we learn about their one fatal flaw.
After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures,
Oh, no.
the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees.
Don't worry,
and
that
classic
was
suits
just
are being
a
retired
trophy,
to an
not a
appropriate
trophy, like
location
a
Now,
necklace.
let's pause here. 2 employees are killed
That
by the
just fell.
failure of a Bonnie suit
Whoops.
and a Freddy suit. Where else in the game do we see Bonnie and Freddy sharing a unique feature that no
Whoops.
one else in the game possesses? Shadow Freddy,
Freddy
and
and
Shadow
Shadow
Bonnie.
Bunny.
Could this be the origin of the paranormal Shadow suits? Yes, actually. Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie are tied to the ghosts of the employees who died in the spring suits. Get this, the employees' bodies were taken out of the suits, which is why their appearance is more paranormal and why they can't possess them as well as the children can. Plus, having this as their origin
Spring
would
Bonnie-
explain the in-game behavior
Spring
of
Trap
both
hit.
suits.
He
In
just
FNAF
got
3, we see that
disintegrated.
Purple Guy hides in a secret safe room that
Oh,
has
no.
been built into every pizzeria.
Spring
A room
Trap
that's
just got
hidden to customers
disintegrated.
and invisible to the
That's what
animatronics
happened.
programming. During the minigames that occur between nights, we see Shadow Freddy lead the other animatronics to this secret room, only to cause them to glitch out and then get torn apart by Purple Guy. This supernatural origin story is how Shadow Freddy is able to enter the safe room when other animatronics can't. How he's able to lead you to that room in the first place when other animatronics wouldn't be able to see it based on their programming, and even why he leads you there, knowing that Purple Guy attacking you will eventually free your soul.
Oh,
That's
wait.
also why there's no Purple Freddy suit when you do finally enter that room. It's not an alternate Purple Guy costume like many believe, it's an apparition. Suck on that, Harry Potter. I knew someone would apparate eventually. It also explains why Shadow Bonnie's minigame in FNAF 3 always starts on stage 01, the spring suits, and why it's the one animatronic we control that has the ghostly ability to glitch, fly, and teleport. As we concluded last episode, this is also the point in the timeline of the first missing children's incident, the one we learn about via newspaper clippings in Five Nights 1. So, based on the newspaper clipping evidence we have, we know that the mauve murderer dressed in one of the suits lured children to a back room and killed them. He's starting to develop his signature. But one nagging detail FNAF theorists have been wondering is, what suit does he use for his disguise? The answer? Golden Bonnie. Why? Well, remember the phone guy saying the faulty suits were being retired to an appropriate location. There's a high likelihood they're being stored in one of the safe rooms in the restaurants. Plus, we hear in FNAF 2 that the purple guy has a habit of using a yellow suit.
We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it.
But why not Golden Freddy? Phone guy tells us so at the beginning of Night 5 in FNAF 3.
Management has also been made aware that the Spring Bonnie animatronic has been noticeably moved.
My, what an oddly specific detail to include, Scott Cawthon. And remember, these tapes that play in FNAF 3 date all the way back to the first pizzeria location, which is why this detail is so important. It reflects Purple Guy starting to develop his signature killing pattern. From there, we know the rest of the story. Purple Guy kills the kids, stuffs the bodies into the suits to hide them, but as we read the paper, is caught on camera and arrested. Meanwhile, the puppet gives life to the children, and the angry spirits possess the robots. Or is that really how it goes? Let's go back to the Give Gifts, Give Life minigame. The children are lying there dead, and the puppet first tries to give them presents. Weird, right? Weird until you consider that his place is at the prize corner. Giving presents is the only thing he knows that can make children happy. It's a reflex. Remember, this is still a child spirit in this puppet, but when that doesn't work, the puppet goes around one more time and does the only other thing it can think of: put the bodies into the suits. You heard that right. In trying to save the children, he's the one hiding them in the animatronic suits, not the killer like we've been assuming. But then what about the fifth child, as there's only 4 here? Well, as we pointed out last time, the fifth child is there too, appearing at the very end of the minigame and taking the role of Golden Freddy. But remember, Golden Freddy is a decommissioned spring-lock suit at this point, deemed too unsafe to be functional. The reason he's slumped over and can't move like the rest is that his endoskeleton has been taken out. He's in suit mode, not free roaming mode. He physically doesn't have the mechanisms in place to stand up and move. Possessed or no, a dead child's spirit just can't give a boneless suit the ability to stand. This also explains the lone naked endoskeleton that appears occasionally family in both Five Nights 2 and Five Nights 1, an endoskeleton that once belonged to Golden Freddy. Whew, I know I made you wait for this one, so I knew I had to make it count. Heck, if there ain't a lot to cover. Still with me? Good, because we're ready for our next location. You see, since the puppet hid the bodies, no one knows they're in the suits until they start oozing and smelling, which, as we see in the papers, eventually gets the place shut down for health violations. The company tries to recover from, quote, the tragedy that took place there many years ago, but can't, and eventually is forced to shut its doors for good. This leads to the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Finally, we're actually going to talk about a game in the series. Seriously, can you believe we've been going this whole time on locations that aren't even settings for the 3 main games? That is why this lore is so challenging, but also so interesting. Anyway, forgotten, dismantled, deactivated. These are the words you see at the beginning of the trailer. Back when the debate about whether this game was a sequel or a prequel to the first game, these words made it seem like a follow-up, that everything had been shut down since the first game, but it wasn't. These words are a reference to the business being closed down after that first missing children's incident. That's why posters everywhere in Five Nights 2 are all about the brand new Fazbear Pizza. It's the grand reopening after years of being out of business. That's also why the new toy animatronics have built-in facial recognition software to a criminal database. They need to be careful to prevent another incident. But, as we know, it doesn't work. As we see in the Save Them minigame, 5 more children get killed in this new location. We know it's the new location because the minigame map's layout perfectly matches this new Fazbear business. We also know it couldn't have happened earlier in the timeline, as both the old animatronics and new toy robots are presented in the game. But this time, the puppet's solution isn't saving the kids, it's stopping the killer. He enlists the help of Freddy to try and SAVETHEM, leading the bear to the killer's location. Except Purple Guy came prepared, equipped with not a phone, but rather something to help him tamper with the animatronics. He knows that something fishy is going on with these robots, because he's been watching, studying. The puppet wants Freddy to save them, to which the killer's answer is only this: you can't. So how did the Purple Guy manage it when he had been caught years before? What about the bite of 87? How do FNAF 1 and 3 fit in? And most importantly of all, who is the Purple Guy? All that next week. Don't worry, I'll come back. I always do. In the meantime, it's all...
Sorry, I got spooked there for a second. Matpat was the puppet, so I got spooked. Oh, whoa, what happened? What? What?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory. We may not have made FNAF, but I like to think we've at least made it a bit more interesting. So in part 1 of this long-awaited all questions answered FNAF theory, we covered everything from the origins of the shadow animatronics, to the reason for Golden Freddy's ghostly behavior, to proof of what suit the killer uses. We clarified the timeline and even went so far as to dispel the myth that the killer is the one shoving the bodies into the suits. Click here if you missed it to get caught up. Don't worry, I'll wait. This is a pausable video after all. But today we're covering the major questions from the
I am not listening to this.
Call welcomes you to your new summer job.
Oh,
Job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Summer job. And yet, the paycheck at the end of the week
It
reads
could just be a
November.
mess up.
There is not a single place in the world where November is a summer month. Not one. Meaning that these tapes, all these tapes, are pre-recorded.
No.
And honestly, that should be a
could just be the
surprise.
first
Phone
one.
Guy's calls are recordings in
That
every
should just
game.
be the first
in FNAF
one.
1, before Phone Guy died,
That
he
should
says
be the
he's glad he recorded
first.
these messages when he did.
That should be the first. The first one is just pre-recorded,
And then in
probably.
FNAF 3, they find the old training tapes the Phone Guy made.
First of all, we found some
Probably
vintage
the
audio
audio
training
tapes,
cassettes.
training sets.
These
Usually
were
like prehistoric.
I think they were like training tape?
In short, all of Phone Guy's messages are unstuck in time, not recorded any time near your
Prehistoric.
tenure as security guard. That includes the ones in FNAF 2 talking about children going missing. The pizzeria isn't being shut down for an investigation of some missing children the week you happen to be working there. You're listening to old tapes meant for the night security guard from months ago.
No, this
Need
is a
more proof?
coincidence.
Night 6's call references a
It's
birthday
just a
party happening as the
coincidence.
last event before the building closes.
No.
But what decorations do we see put up throughout the building for the entirety of the week you're working there? Happy birthday banners. Confusing? You
This is a Chuck E. Cheese themed restaurant. What do you expect? This is Chuck E. Cheese themed, baby. I don't think that it's gonna be that much of a big deal that happy birthday signs are all over the place.
betcha. Game changing? Absolutely. This means
No,
that both
oh
Jeremy
my
and Fritz, the characters you play as throughout FNAF 2, aren't the killer purple guy at all. They were both working in November, after the yellow suit investigation and the killer getting
Yellow.
charged. Which brings
The
us
pea
to the other key
suits.
point in the timeline, the bite of 87. Ever
The
since we
bite
heard about this
of
mysterious
87.
frontal lobe nibble on that first fateful night at Freddy's, we've wanted to know more about this bizarre attack, the one that ends up resulting in animatronics no longer being allowed to walk around during the day. But now, 3 games in, we do know more. We know it took place in the location of FNAF 2 based on the 1987 date on Jeremy's paycheck. And furthermore, the newspaper clipping that
Oopsies.
ends FNAF 2 gives us a clue that it's the bite which closes this version of the restaurant, not some serial killing. Quote, after being open a few short weeks, the restaurant is closing its
Closing.
doors, the article says, with the new animatronics being scrapped for possible malfunction. That's game designer Scott
Possible?
Cawthon telling us that one of the new toy animatronics bit someone during the day. Why else would the new
No.
robots be scrapped while the old ones get kept for possible reorganization? Well, outside of an obvious need to retcon why these new robots didn't appear in Five Nights 1, it's because the company considered them safer, relatively
Like-
speaking. So, then who's the biter? Well, it's none other than the pile of scraps and parts,
Nah, it's Balloon Boy. It's super obvious, man. It's Balloon Boy. Everyone can agree here it is Balloon Boy. There's no argument it is Balloon Boy. End of sentence.
The most obvious clue is the animatronic's unhinged jaw. The frontal lobe is the biggest part of the human brain, and the size and shape of the other toy robots' mouths just wouldn't be able to handle the size of the human head, especially when you compare it to the Mangle's narrow snout and wide open mouth. There's also Mangle's sharper teeth and potential angle of attack. As shown by its jump scare, Mangle goes for the top of the head. And who got bit? Well, there isn't enough evidence to say definitively, but your most likely candidate would be fan favorite Jeremy Fitzgerald. Jeremy passes the test, and on his paycheck at the end of the week, he's welcomed into the family, presumably getting moved to day shift. Fritz gets hired to replace him on day 7, but then promptly gets fired for tampering with the animatronics. That means he's not likely the one to get bit, and instead the person who follows him on day shift is, leaving Jeremy as the most likely frontal lobeless candidate. But regardless of whether it's Jeremy or
This
some
is
other
a
customer we've
tragedy.
never met, someone gets bit, the restaurant closes for good,
Alright.
and as the newspaper clippings show, the old animatronics go into storage awaiting a smaller location with a lower budget. Fast forward to the 90s and FNAF 1. We know it's the 90s based on the hourly rate of the paycheck received by Mike Schmidt, security guard extraordinaire from the first game, something we proved in our first Five Nights video. And
Five
now we
Nights
can breathe a
video.
sigh of relief, because this was the beautiful time long ago, last August, when the games weren't so complicated, when the biggest mysteries were a game-crashing gold bear and the words, "It's me." No death minigames, no puppets, no need to shoehorn in extra overcomplicated storylines. That all would come later when the first game became a smash hit and got itself some sequels. And boy, did those sequels make things complicated, as both featured 8-bit minigames revealing more details about this location from the original game. First things first, we know that the purple guy kills 5 children here. We see it in the Foxy Go Go Go
Go
minigame
minigame.
from FNAF 2. Foxy runs past a grinning purple guy to see
Wait, hold on. Didn't he say that the bodies got hurt in 1987? So that means the animatronics were possessed before that. Why would Foxy not go attack the purple guy? What the
5
heck?
dead bodies. Sorry,
No.
no fireworks this time,
No, no,
Foxy.
no.
And how do we know it's the
No.
FNAF 1 location? Well, it's the only time in the game when Foxy's stage, Pirate Cove, is located to the west of a dining area. See how he performs for the children by running to the right? That matches the map layout of the FNAF 1 pizzeria. We also know from the FNAF 3 minigames that this is where the purple guy dies inside a golden spring-lock Bonnie suit in a safe room near the back. One built so that it would never show up on camera, conveniently explaining why it
No.
never appeared in the first game. But hold on, weren't those safe rooms sealed up a long time ago? I mean, we touched on this last episode, but the old recordings of Phone Guy we listened to throughout FNAF 3 say that these rooms are being closed off, discontinued, and will never be mentioned again. Why would a location 20 years later possess a safe room unless it was the same building as
my
the first
God.
Freddy Fazbear's
Oh my
Pizza
God.
location? That's why it's in such disrepair when we see it in the
Oh
FNAF 3
my
minigames,
God.
boarded up with rats on the floor. It's been closed down for years, which also means the dead kids from the Foxy Go 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 minigame aren't another set of new victims, cause seriously, at this point, the killer would have made his way through like a short bus full of pizza-hungry children. No, those kids are the first 5 dead kids, the ones who would eventually possess Old
Freddy,
Bonnie,
oh
Chica,
God,
Freddy,
Freddy.
Foxy, and Golden Freddy. I mean, look, if the animatronics were possessed at this point, don't you think Foxy would be attacking Purple Guy rather than
Exactly.
just running past him to perform for some dead
Exactly.
kids? This also explains the random cutscene from FNAF 2 where the puppet's looking into Freddy's eyes. You can tell by the tables in the background and the design of both Bonnie and Chica that this is the FNAF 1 location with the old animatronics on stage. But it's not a flash forward to the game's next location, but rather a flash back to the moment the
What?
puppet brought these characters, these children, to life. Okay, but that's just tying together some loose ends in the story. We're interested in how this whole thing ends, and those FNAF 3 minigames give us the conclusion we're looking for. These flashback minigames show Purple Guy dismantling the animatronics from the security of the safe room one by one. But in doing so, he's unwittingly releasing the spirits of his former victims. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy.
And they become the Freddy Fazbear superheroes.
Golden Freddy. When their powers combine, they
Yeah,
are able to
let's
scare
go.
Purple Guy into the Golden Bonnie spring-lock suit, which fails, crushes him pretty much to the point of death, though notice we never actually see him die, and the spirits fade away. Golden Bonnie, with Purple Guy inside, now known as Springtrap, rots away in the safe room for
is a
years
wild
until he's
design.
finally uncovered by the
That's
founders of
great.
Fazbear's Fright from the third game. With the discovery of Springtrap, this haunted house attraction inspired by the years of mystery and murder of the pizzeria chain finally has their first real animatronic, who then haunts the player for 5 nights and a nightmare night until the place burns down due to faulty wiring. The end.
Burn.
Take a bow.
Burn.
It's finally over.
burn.
Well, kinda. We're still left with one final, seemingly impossible question to answer.
my.
Who is the Purple Guy? After
Yes.
spending, I kid you not, full days
William.
plotting out all the details
William.
of this game franchise on
William.
whiteboards, talking it
William.
over with anyone who would stand to listen to me
William.
ramble on and on about fictional haunted robots, and just looking at it from every possible angle, all logic points to it being
What? Sorry for the shameless cliffhanger here, but due to a copyright strike currently on the channel, I can't upload videos longer than 10-15 minutes, and this one is 18 plus, and I didn't want to make you guys wait any longer for this episode, so thanks for understanding, and click here because the video is up now for you to watch. Oh, okay. Sorry for the shameless multi-upload here, but it was, yeah.
finally has their first real animatronic, who then haunts the player for 5 nights and a nightmare night until the place burns down due to faulty wiring. The end. Take a bow. It's finally over. Well, Well, kinda. We're still left with one final, seemingly impossible question to answer. Who is the purple guy? After spending, I kid you not, full days plotting out all the details of this game franchise on whiteboards, talking it over with anyone who would stand to listen to me ramble on and on about fictional haunted robots, and just looking at it from every possible angle, all logic points to it being the phone guy.
No, he's
and
a nice
not
boy.
because I
He
made
is
a
a
theory
nice
about it and
boy.
refused to let it die.
He
Honestly,
is a
I
really
couldn't care
nice
less if that
boy.
last video was wrong. At this point, I just care about the truth, and phone guy makes the most logical sense. I know your complaints, and I promise you, if you stick with me, you'll be convinced.
Phone guy? Wait, hold on. Go back. Phone guy? Seriously? That's it. My knee, your ear right now.
First, there's the circumstantial evidence I presented during my FNAF 2 theory. Phone Guy's admitted love of Foxy being reflected by the smiling purple guy sprite during
So
the Foxy Go Go Go
weird.
minigame. His distrust of the puppet, a creature haunted by his first victim that we see time and time again trying to bring a stop to his killing spree. His admitted role as a security guard, and even the weird phone-like object in his hand from the
It's
Save
not
the
a
minigame.
phone.
But there's even more evidence when we consider
In the
Five
temp,
Nights
you
3.
said that in the
Consider
last
this.
video,
He's the
bro.
only person in the game who knows about the safe
No.
rooms. As we've mentioned before, all the safe rooms were sealed up back in the Springlock suit days, back in the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, meaning
No.
every other employee coming afterward would have never even heard of these
No.
things. Phone Guy is the only character we meet who would have
No.
any knowledge of these rooms,
No.
and more importantly, of how they
No.
operate, how they're invisible to the cameras, and more importantly, to the animatronics. And that's just the beginning. He's also the only person who knows how to use the Springlock suits. Again,
No.
once they were decommissioned, the suits were hidden away. Regardless
No.
of whether you believe that the killer used a golden Bonnie suit the
No,
whole
no.
time, or you think he used a golden Freddy suit, either way, we know for a fact the killer was using one of the yellow Springlock suits, and Phone Guy is the only character we know who had knowledge of A, where they
No,
were
he
hidden,
did
and
that.
B, how they were
No.
operated safely. Now,
No,
I know
no.
a lot of people have said that it couldn't have been Phone Guy because he knew better. He knew that they were dangerous and could kill him, so if he was indeed the purple guy, he wouldn't just hop into a
What?
Springtrap suit like we see depicted at the ending of FNAF 3. But there's one key detail that everyone has been overlooking, and that Scott carefully included in this game. Listen.
I swear, if he says it's a ringtone, I'm gonna be mad.
You hear it? There's rain.
Oh.
There are puddles on the ground.
Okay, good.
It's
Not a-
dripping
not-
from the
not- it's
ceiling.
not a
The killer had been
ringtone.
using these Springlock suits
That would've been
safely for
funny.
years, but in his panic to escape the ghosts, he failed to notice the wetness of the building around him. The
Wetness.
killer had never encountered this problem before because the building had always
He's
been in a
never
decent state of
encountered
repair, but
rain.
now it's a wreck torn
Ah.
apart by age. Rain is able to seep in, something he didn't realize when he was in such a hurry to run away from the ghosts. And if moist breath can loosen the locks, you can bet some rain would make those suckers ready to snap shut. And they do, killing our killer. I mean, all of that makes a pretty compelling argument, almost an open and shut case, if there wasn't one final major criticism to the Phone Guy theory since the release of FNAF 3. And it's a good one. The fact that Phone Guy seems to die during his Night 4 phone call from the first game.
Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow.
Wait. He's in.
For me.
Oh, he's in the office. He's in the office. How would he be in a
If Phone Guy
suit if
was
it's
the
in
killer,
the
why would the
office?
robots still be active after his death and the ghosts
Oh
disappear?
my
It just wouldn't make sense
God.
unless you stop to consider the rest of FNAF 3's
Wait.
The big
He
twist
still
in FNAF
dies,
3 is
though.
the inclusion of a
He still
good and
dies.
bad ending. By completing the game normally, you get
He
the
still
bad
dies.
ending, in which we see
In the
Purple
bad
Guy
ending,
die
yeah, he
in a
still
flashback
dies.
minigame,
So,
and the whole
what the
thing
heck?
ends with 5 masks representing the 5 main animatronics, with lights on behind their eyes. The good ending, meanwhile, requires using some not-so-subtly hidden clues to unlock minigames, then basically ignoring those games, glitching them out, and giving hidden dead kids cake to make them happy, obviously referring to the victims of Purple Guy. Beat the game this time, and the ending is largely the same, but with one fewer animatronic mask and no lights on. The obvious difference
Golden
here is that
Freddy
in
is
the
a
good
freaking
ending, the
invisible
souls
anyways.
of the dead children have been put at peace. When they disappear for good. They don't go back to their animatronic bodies. But the bad ending? The lights on behind the eyes of all 5 masks mean that these guys are still active. Angry, restless spirits still haunting the robots to this day. Because here's the thing. The good ending doesn't exist until you, as the player of the 3rd installment, give cake
The
to those
third
kids during
installment.
FNAF 3's hidden minigames.
Installment.
What you play in FNAF 1, though, is the aftermath.
What? 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 Wait, isn't FNAF 1 before FNAF 3? Isn't FNAF 3 supposed to take place in 2023 or 2024? And FNAF 1 is supposed to be taking place in 1995? Why would a 29-year difference have an effect? Like, 29 years. What? Wait.
Of the bad ending, when the animatronics have killed Phone Guy but are still out for vengeance. Yeah, you made it through those first 5 nights at Freddy's. You overheard the death of the Purple Guy recorded live on the phone, but it wasn't enough. You got the bad ending. Even with the killer crippled in the back room in a spring lock suit, the lights are still on
Why
in
would
these
it affect the
animatronics. They're
past?
still roaming the halls, attacking anyone wearing that much-hated security guard
Hello,
outfit.
Jordan.
People like Mike Schmidt, an innocent guy just trying to do his job at a failing pizza restaurant. And as the
Failing.
final nail in the coffin, what Phone Guy says in his Night 4 recording perfectly foreshadows what we see in the games.
Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there.
Think about what Purple Guy does. He hides in a back room, the safe room, hides in a suit, and despite getting sprung-trapped, actually does hold out until someone checks. Holds out long enough for the phone dude to find the hidden safe room, recover the animatronic, and set him free in Fazbear Fright. Exactly what the Phone Guy said he'd do in his final moments. And as Springtrap, he comes back in FNAF 3. Comes back like he always does. And with no real animatronics present at Fazbear's Fright, remember Springtrap is the only real one they've found, with all the rest scattered, probably located in dumps, which is why their bodies and faces are decaying. All that the spirits can do is appear as phantoms, hallucinations. Well, all except one. The puppet, who we see in his physical form roaming the hallways of Fazbear Fright. So real, in fact, that we see his reflection, visible in the pools of water under his feet, meaning he is there and unburnt. There's only one way to truly end this. End the murderous Purple Guy, burning the place to the ground. The puppet gave robots life, gave spirits peace, and finally gave the murderer, the Phone Guy, his long-deserved death. Or at least tried to. And that is the end of the Five Nights at Freddy's story. No hat, no movie, no 4th installment.
What? Oh, no, 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 oh no.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what happened? What's wrong?
No.
Look!
Dude, was he just sitting in that corner the whole time? Just reading off that script, and he was just like, no.
Oh no.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed these theories, show your appreciation.
I already am subbed.
Sorry, Scott Cawthon. I'm tired of waiting for you. This time you'll have to keep up with me. Oh, never mind. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where instead of waiting for FNAF 4 to be released, this time we're getting out ahead of the game. Or at least that was the plan. Scott, I swear, you are the biggest internet troll out there. Oh, it's being released October 31st. Okay, let me plan my entire schedule around that. Never mind, it's now in August. Okay, fine, let me rework everything. Lols. Here's the full version now. You,
7
Scott
days?
Coffin, are the reason I have an emotional dependence on Diet Coke. But today I'll be sipping that sweet,
6
sweet
days later.
Diet Coke in sweet, sweet victory. Because guess what? I win! Scott, in your rush to get the game out, to get out ahead of my theories and completely flim-flam the internet and shock everyone by releasing the game 3 months early, you missed a huge detail. Maybe before releasing the game, you should have spent a bit more time researching, because this game, as you've presented it,
Aren't all games impossible? Isn't it impossible for dead kids to possess suits? Isn't it all impossible? Like, are you kidding me?
is impossible. Let me explain. Basically, it's all but confirmed at this point that in FNAF 4 you play as the victim of the bite of 87, and that this game is either his nightmare or what he's seeing in a coma as he recovers from his injuries. Let me run you through the evidence real quick so that we're all on the same page. First, in the months leading up to the release of the game, there were clues hidden in the source code for some of the teasers on Scott's website, with the numbers 87, 87 repeated over and over again. Two numbers that anyone who hasn't been living under a rock will recognize as a key date in the franchise's lore, the bite of 87. This is further supported by the text on the teaser images. All of the pictures released on the site basically ask the same question. Was it me? Which seems to refer to the actual attacker of the bite itself. But there was one more word we saw repeated throughout the teasers: nightmare. Hidden over top of multiple teaser images was that exact word. That, combined with the Freddy Krueger-ish design of the animatronics, with teeth and claws everywhere, something far different from how we've seen these things designed in the past, seemed to indicate that this would be the way a child would imagine these creatures if he had had a traumatic experience with them, making it seem like what we would be playing would be a dream. Couple that with some evidence from the trailer. The first words are, "What is it you think you see?" making us question the reality of the images in the game. But there was also something that everyone seemed to overlook about this trailer: the appearance of the number 4. Scott doesn't do things randomly.
Scott doesn't do coincidences, except for the times he does them.
As I'm sure we're all aware by now. And notice the movement of the 4. It starts off in a horizontal plane, like it was laying down on something.
The first theory was based off of coincidence.
A bed, but then wakes up to stand vertically before the trailer ends. Even that remnant red rectangle is meant to symbolize the bed. Everything seems to be letting us know that what we're seeing isn't really real, it's a dream, or better yet, a nightmare. Now, fast forward to the game's release, or I suppose casually meander to the game's release since it wasn't too long afterwards, and we see that this theory still holds. Flowers, an IV, and pills will occasionally show up next to your bed. Classical medical supplies that show us that this is a child in recovery. Foxy, who's hiding in a closet, will transform back to a plush toy if you hold the door closed on him long enough, making it seem like this was all a dream or hallucination. And of course, the biggest piece of evidence of all, the cutscene that ends night 5, which, if you don't want a spoiler, click here to skip. All of you skip now? Good. Actually shows the bite of 87 take place in the mouth of the golden Fredbear. This is further supported by the quote-unquote boss of the game.
Was that the bite of 87?
Fredbear, where in the final nights, he's the one who ends up stalking you. All the other animatronics disappear. You're being haunted by the suit that bit you. So yeah, that's it. All the evidence points to the victim of 87 being our protagonist, the character we're playing as in FNAF 4. Good job, Scott. You finally put together a game with a coherent plotline. Except you didn't. Scott Cawthon, if all of us are right in our theory, then you, sir, are wrong. Just when it looked like you were making a game that actually adhered to its own lore, you
What?
also made a game that is completely impossible from a scientific perspective. Loyal theorists,
of
this
course,
time we
all
give
the games
Scott's
are.
latest bag of tricks a little lesson in real-life science. While frontal lobe injuries aren't as uncommon as people think, actually they happen all the time in car accidents, playing football, falling down, etc., having your whole frontal lobe bitten off has a much more profound impact on mental and physical functions. It would come with a whole slew of symptoms from motor skill impairment to nervous system issues, but the side effects we're most concerned with today would all be psychological. Removal of the frontal lobe significantly impacts the victim's ability to process certain types of stimuli, specifically fear stimuli. Let me give you some backstory. In the good old 1940s and 50s, psychiatrists often thought the best way to cure problems with the brain were to cut pieces out. Feeling depressed? Well, let's slice that out. Overly aggressive? That chunk probably wasn't important. As such, there are extremely well-documented studies of patients without frontal lobes. And what's fascinating about them was what happened to their fear response. Patients without a frontal lobe become uninhibited because they no longer have a fear response. Way back in my Fallout episode, we looked in depth at the most famous accidental lobotomy in history, Phineas Gage, who literally had an iron rod shot straight through his head, completely destroying his left frontal lobe. One of the most striking differences between pre-pole Phineas and post-pole Phineas was his sense of inhibition. And by that I mean post-pole Phineas had none. He had no sense of caution, no sense of fear or self-consciousness. He was described to be impulsive to the point of being rude and vulgar in public. No fear, no anxiety, no social pressure anywhere. Going back to the game, one of the things Scott does a great job of throughout the FNAF franchise is putting you in the eyes of Mike or Jeremy or whoever. We feel invested in our protagonist because we are that character. But in this case, that's scientifically impossible, specifically because of the bite of 87. If the main character of this game truly is little Timmy Lost a Lobe, he wouldn't wander around a house clicking a flashlight on and off. Why would he? He doesn't care, because tragically, he no longer has the capacity to care. His brain structure no longer allows it. As if this weren't enough, a frontal lobe injury also tampers with concentration and attention span. The main character in the game is still supposed to be concentrated over a long period of multiple hours. But the thing is, patients without frontal lobes don't have this ability. In fact, they can only stay focused on what they see immediately happening in front of them. A child missing a frontal lobe who repeatedly turned a flashlight on and off in a hallway without seeing anything would lose interest. They wouldn't have the mental wiring necessary to concentrate on self-preservation. They would literally just go back to bed. The game is impossible the way it's being presented, because it would literally be over before it began. But the final and biggest nail in the coffin for this one is how frontal lobe injuries affect the imagination. The frontal lobe controls a ton of mental processing abilities, including dreams. You might think that an uncontrollable imagination would lead to exactly the kind of nightmares or hallucinations you see in this game, but in fact, it's the exact opposite. Rigorous studies have been done on the imaginations and dream states of lobotomized patients. While patients without a frontal lobe can have dreams, one thing they can't have is nightmares. Patients missing a frontal lobe carry their lack of fear and inhibition straight into their dreams. And why not? It makes sense. If the mind isn't registering fear consciously, there's no reason to process it subconsciously in a dream. Studies show that lobotomized patients can dream about idyllic scenarios, money, fame, praise, but they can't dream about the monsters under the bed, or in this case, the Foxy in the closet, making the nightmare state of FNAF 4 impossible for the victim of the bite of 87. In fact, going back to the dark days of psychiatry, some patients who experience the kind of recurring nightmare we see in FNAF 4 actually had their frontal lobes intentionally removed to stop these dreams from happening. One famous case describes a patient who was experiencing a recurring dream of being chased by ferocious animals. After the patient received the lobotomy in 1953, yes, he still had the dream, but would instead describe it as being a nice dream with some nice animals. His visions in the dream were no longer threatening. The animals were happy, He was happy, and he was no longer able to perceive any of the fear he once had prior to the surgery. So scientifically speaking, there is no single way the main character of FNAF 4 can be the Bite of 87
It's
victim,
FNAF.
like Scott seems to have indicated. Sure, the game could be about another kid, I guess, but that would be lame. No, this game is meant to be about the victim of the Bite of 87. The
No,
poor
it's
kid
actually-
who wasn't just attacked at the restaurant,
I'm
but
surprised.
continues to be tortured through nightmarish visions,
No, it's-
dreams,
people say it's
coma-induced
Michael.
hallucinations, whatever. I have zero doubt that that's what Scott intended, but the fact of the matter is, he just didn't do enough homework. A kid with those sorts of injuries wouldn't care about those things in the first place. He would have no fear, and there would be no animatronics, real or imaginary, that would be able to keep him up at night. Biologically speaking, nothing he would be experiencing would be any scarier than the fan.
Ah!
The fan. Sorry, Scott. Better luck in the movie. But
8 years later.
hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks
Spark.
for watching. So that's the science of FNAF 4, but
I don't care.
there's gotta be a code to open this. Bite of 87. New text? I must be close. Incident of 83. 1 movie. 11 animatronics. 11 kids. 1 phone guy. 1 killer. Hex code for purple. Backwards. Is that Markiplier?
Oh no.
Yes, Matpat, it was me. It was me the whole time, and that's no theory.
Markiplier is way more intimidating. You got it all right. Oh no.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to the Five Nights at Freddy's podcast.
What?
Sorry,
What?
I mean Game Theory. Game Theory! The show that covers theories on other games in the 2-week intervals between new installments of FNAF. But if I'm ever gonna see requests for games other than FNAF 4 in my Twitter feed, this video needed to be made.
Shut
Because, I have a confession, Internet, I made a mistake in my last FNAF video. Not in my research, mind you. My conclusion that this kid scientifically could not be the Bite of 87 victim was actually 100% right, both scientifically and, as you've been eager to point out, lore-wise. No, I was wrong in calling this the Bite of 87. I'm man enough to admit my mistakes. Hey, it's why they're called theories after all, right? Anyway, in this case, Scott was sure to let me know my error in his first comment on any of my videos on the franchise to my knowledge, which was really
It was a good video, Matpat. I always enjoyed them. Unfortunately, as your more clever viewers are pointing out in the comments below, you overlooked a crucial detail in the game, winky face. I'll be looking forward to your next theory.
exciting, but it did leave me wondering, should I feel honored or trolled? And let me just say, because you were asking, I didn't delete that comment. I only delete comments from game theorist bots. No, I don't want your free PSN codes, okay? So I guess Scott must have deleted it himself. Maybe there was a typo. Or maybe a clue to FNAF 5. But before we get that far ahead, let's close
FNAF
the
5.
book on FNAF 4.
Oh my god, man. Book.
Before we typo,
FNAF
or
5.
maybe a clue to FNAF 5.
Yeah, I wish.
No, 5 nights. No, won't do a video. I won't.
No. This is the right video.
Today, we end the horror. Today, we solve FNAF.
Let's. Ah! Ah! What? Puppet! Puppet! Puppet!
Hello, Internet! Welcome
This is
to Game
2015.
Theory, where, after months of intensive therapy, I'm back to finally put the
What?
original FNAF tetralogy to rest.
Tetralogy.
It's done. No more Halloween updates, no more FNAF 5 rumors, and no more fan.
Ah!
Suck on that. 5 rumors and no more fan. Suck on that, you multi-bladed propeller of air. So shortly after my last Freddy theory, I arranged a live stream with some fellow FNAFers to close the book on the series.
Oh my god, man.
Freddy theory, I arranged a live stream with some fellow FNAFers to close the book on the series. And what happened?
That's my face. Book, man. Oh, this is not the right video. We're not watching that. Heck no. 2 hours. That's way too long, man. This video would be this live stream would be way too long.
It's been half a year, so let's do this. Let's solve the secrets of FNAF sister location months before the game comes out.
Ominous music.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where today the goal is to solve the biggest gaming mystery of 2016 before it even exists. For once, I'm gonna get the jump on you, Scott Cawthon, and here's how I'm gonna do it. We all know that Scott loves dropping little teaser hints on his site, but
yeah. What?
this time, he's tipped his hand a bit too far. Enough for me to get a solid theory going on a lot of key elements we'll see hidden throughout his newest installment, Sister Location. And while some clues come from the teaser images and trailers themselves, the biggest revelations this time have come from the source code on Scott's website. So get ready for a comprehensive preview of what Scotty has in store, because by the end, we'll have looked at every, and I mean every element of this franchise, from the original series of games to the novel to FNAF World to the ever-evolving source code on scottgames.com in our attempt to expose the facts behind the next trip to Freddy's. Now, Scott hiding hints in the coding of his site is nothing new. It was the source code that started the whole Bite of 83 versus 87 debate back during FNAF 4. But this time, it's a bit more than just a mere hint of what's to come. It is a fully fledged story. So let's take this line by line. This first big chunk at the beginning starts off like a collection of letters and punctuation, but upon further inspection, you can make out repeated numbering patterns and letter combinations representing days of the week. When pieced together, it becomes a schedule looking like this, listing out the days when certain animatronics are either
baby available,
available, booked, needed for a private party, or mat, either in maintenance or needed for a matinee show. It's unclear which. It's also worth mentioning that 4 animatronics are specifically called out here: BBY for Baby, BAL for Ballora, and FTF for both Funtime Freddy and Funtime Foxy. Now, for those of you who don't follow every scrap of information about these games, let me explain. Reddit discovered that Scott had gone and copyrighted various names, presumably for these new animatronics, and here we see it being confirmed. More on some of these guys in a minute. The thing I want to call out first is that there's clearly a 5th animatronic in this schedule, 0500S, out of service. But who could this be? In the trailer, we only see 4 animatronics. Well, that's where this teaser image comes in. A few weeks ago, this image was up on Scott Games. A mask with glowing eyes and a tangle of wires, almost like tentacles, accompanied by this text. Quote, "There's a little bit of me in everybody," end quote. Notice the grammar here. It's not everybody, but everybody. This is our 5th animatronic, our out-of-service animatronic. I mean, look at it. This guy ain't being booked at any children's parties. But that's not all we can conclude about him. The text indicates that a piece of him, his soul, his mechanisms, whatever, is in every other animatronic body. This could have 2 possible explanations. Either he's possessed the other animatronics and is controlling them, which would explain the "don't hold it against us" line from the teaser trailer we hear over and over again. Or, more likely, he's the reason the other animatronics have life in the first place. This pile of wires is kind of like the puppet from the original series, giving gifts, giving life. Or maybe this is the Puppet. A
No.
new and rebooted version of the Puppet. Now, stay with me here. One thing that we've largely forgotten about since his first appearance back in FNAF 2 is how the Puppet character just didn't fit in with the FNAF world. Sure, as it kept making appearances in game after game, we just kinda accepted its role, but seriously, think about it. FNAF 1 through 4 were all about animatronics with big, bulky bodies and an animal theme. But then insert the Puppet, thin and with a human face, complete with red cheeks, crying eyes, and red lips. Features that we haven't seen on anything else until now. Fast forward to Sister Location and we see humanoid faces everywhere. Ballora and Baby, rosy cheeks, lipstick. And now look at Day of the Tentacle over here. Notice that the ears can detach, separate itself from the main mask part of the face. It's the exact same silhouette that our Puppet's face has had since the second game. Additionally, if you look at the trailer for Sister Location very closely, you discover what may be a very cool Easter egg. In the reflection of Funtime Foxy's cheek, we see something.
The models of each other, so it's Baby right next to Funtime Foxy, and the reflection, since it's glossy, got shown from Baby.
For all the other animatronics, it's a part of their body. For Ballora the ballerina, we see the reverse of her arm and earrings. For Baby, it's her finger and bow. But Foxy here is reflecting something that has a bright red dot besides two colored streaks, aka a bright red cheek and two streaming tear tracks. It's like that time we covered reflection mapping to find Super Smash Bros. Hidden location. Could that be the Puppet's face reflection mapped onto the model of Foxy's skull? Regardless though, if you ask me, we haven't seen the last of the Puppet in whatever form he comes in, and based on the designs of these characters, Sister Location might finally be giving us the origin story we've long been waiting for. Now, hopping back to the source code, the next section shows us that there seems to be 3 file directories for various clients. The first is for a place called Chica's Party World, the second for private birthday parties, and the third for CRMN Institute. I can only assume Carmen Institute or Criminal Institute. This starts to tell us a lot about the setting and universe of Sister Location. First, many people have speculated that the industrial feeling setting shown during the trailer for the game is a factory for the robots. I think we can get a bit more specific. Considering the availability schedule that we just covered and the client folders with various needs for birthday party supplies, it feels like this new setting will be a storage facility and distribution center for the animatronics, responsible for shipping them out to various gigs across the Fazbear Center for the animatronics, responsible for shipping them out to...
What is that Toy Bonnie looking nightmare animatronic that I'm looking at right now? Jimmy, Jimmy, do you see this? Do you see what I'm looking at? Okay, he's not responding. Alright.
Out to various gigs across the Fazbear locations. The reference to Chica's Party World builds out the lore of the universe, showing another spin-off location to the restaurants, but also strikes me as just that, a reference, a fun Easter egg, referencing the one animatronic who won't be appearing in this new game. So far, we've seen versions of Freddy, Foxy, and a Bonnie hand puppet, but Chica has been noticeably absent. And honestly, I think it's gonna remain that way. For some reason, it just feels like she doesn't fit in this new world. And so the mention of Chica's Party World is a fun wink and a nod to a character that will be sorely missed. But to me, of all this section, the most crucial client is the last one, the CRMN Institute. Notice when you look at it that it has a subfolder called Project. This to me is incredibly important since every teaser image Scott has posted on the site related to Sister Location has been labeled project.jpg. Seems like a generic naming convention, right? Wrong. I went to an Internet Archive database and dug through the source code of all the past teaser images from all of Scott's past games, only to find that his labeling system has been very consistent. His FNAF World images were all labeled FNAFworld.jpg. Images about the book were labeled FNAF the
Oh, fudge, man. He said book.
When it gets dark, they will awaken. The children's spirits will...
Hi.
When it gets dark, they will awaken. The children's spirits will rise.
Oh wait, this is a book.
They will kill you.
Oh no.
Or just walk out in the morning, stepping over your corpses one by one. You are intruders. None of you will survive the night. And what makes you think they won't kill you? Because I am one of them.
Okay.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, still available to consult on the FNAF movie's storyline. Seriously, Scott, I'll be waiting by the phone because I can practically guarantee I've put more collective hours of thought into counting animatronic toes, tracking eye colors, listing out the differences between pizzerias, diners, and rental services, parsing out your phone guy calls, and counting and recounting again the number of dead child carcasses left in your story's wake than literally anyone else out there. I mean, I've even gone so far as to do the unthinkable for these sister location videos. That's right, I reread The Silver Eyes. In an ironic twist, it took longer than the actual game. Now, here I am piecing together this script after, I kid you not, a weekend spent doing nothing but thinking about these games, writing and rewriting timeline after timeline to account for all the nonsensical Easter eggs shoved into this 4-hour experience. And you know the conclusion that I've reached, that your version of events isn't satisfying. That any theory I come up with that attempts to bend over backwards and cobble together every line of dialogue, design detail, and character motivation will be overcomplicated at best and inherently flawed at worst. And that's not me admitting defeat, it's a fundamental problem with the series right now. This one just tried too hard to do too many things. You've got elements of the past 4 games mixed in with FNAF World, mixed in with the book, all of which at this point—
Oh my god, Matpat, we're not even 2 minutes in.
Isn't this why you came here? To be with her again?
Don't you remember what you saw?
What happened? I'll put you back together, I'll put you back together, I'll put you back together, I'll put you back. You shut up.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, 7 million theorists strong.
I thought that said 7 million theories. I was like, my face started to go down and I was like, what?
And a lot of that is thanks to this franchise. More often than not, when I talk to people about their favorite episodes of this series, it's these. Young, old, it doesn't matter, the FNAF series was their first introduction. So I always feel a lot of pressure on these videos to deliver in a big way. You know, looking back, they're some of my personal favorites. Not only am I proud of the final product, but I'm proud of what they represent, as the FNAF series has been a true team effort, branching out across every person who has ever touched this channel, spanning every editor who's ever worked on an episode of Game Theory, getting you loyal theorists involved with pitching theories, and covering every style of theory that I personally write, from more IRL episodes to more lore-based ones. We've used everything from books to spin-off titles.
Oh my god. Man. Skip. It has nothing to do with FNAF.
It's me, Michael. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
Nope. Nuh-uh, not touching it. No, sirree, Bob. No way. You can mechanically wheeze all you want, Michael Eggs Benedict, Afton, Purple Guy, Jingleheimer, Schmidt, but I am not spending another 20 minutes trying to piece together whether you're Springtrap, whether you're Purple Guy, whether you're a second Purple Guy, and whether all of this requires yet another rewrite of the timeline. I am not doing it, at least not until the next book comes out in June.
Can't fucking. No. I just say it. Howie? I don't know what I said. I did not swear though, so. Ugly? I don't know. I don't remember.
Springtrap.
No.
A horde of the Balloon Boys emerged from the cave, shaking back and forth on unsteady feet, their pointed teeth chattering loudly as they wobbled forward with staring eyes. Not again! I hate these things, Jessica cried. You and me both, sister. You and me both. Up top. Can't high-five me up top because you're a fictional character. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where... Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. FNAF 6 is canceled.
Yeah.
Looks like I had more staying power than you, Scotty C. Let's be honest, though. It's gonna be more delayed than canceled, really. And there's still the movie, the merch, a second book just released, a third...
Oh my god.
You know, it really is uncanny how these two games overlap. Hello, Internet! Welcome to the 200th episode of Game Theory. I mean, technically it's the 201st and a half episode because we had a mini theory way back on the channel a long time ago that's now privated because of reasons. And then technically the Bendy episode last week was the 200th episode, but I thought this felt more appropriate because it's solving FNAF with one final mega theory. So the 200th episode of Game Theory. Proud members of the Pink Guy Truthers Club. Now, for those of you who don't know, one of the longest held debates in FNAF theorydom is whether this murderer watching children die is the same as this murderer watching children die. Because of their different colors, they became dubbed Purple Guy and Pink Guy, the two most threatening colors. Taste the rainbow, slaughter the rainbow. Anyway, since FNAF 2, I have been opposed to this theory, and I can now confirm it is dead. Like a child wanting a mediocre slice of overpriced pizza, dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. One look at Scott's new strategy guide for the series, The Freddy Files, confirms it. Page 48, when describing the Foxy Go 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 minigame from FNAF 2, quote, Purple Guy is visible in the lower left corner of the room. There it is, clear as crystal. Purple Guy in the corner. Now comes the super awkward question that I never thought I'd have to answer. Which purple guy? Because there's two now, and if you didn't know that, strap in, it is gonna be a long episode. FNAF as a franchise has always been defined by questions. What was the missing children's incident? Who is Purple Guy? What's the deal with Balloon Boy? Seriously, what is the deal with Balloon Boy? But by FNAF 4, the games had just become a mire of unanswered questions where it was becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between a withered Freddy, a phantom Freddy, and a Nightmare Freddy, let alone a golden Freddy versus a golden Fredbear. We had Fazbear Frights, Fazbear Pizzas, Fazbear Entertainment, Fredbear Diners, Fredbear and Friends, Missing Children, Crying Children, and bites from pretty much every decade. Then came Sister Location, where between the butter and bongos, theorists, myself included, struggled to try and fit together a story told by animatronics that lie, hand units that lie, animatronics that fuse with other animatronics, and animatronics that fuse together with humans, who then become purple and immortal. Needless to say, it was a lot. For me, what had become the scariest part of FNAF wasn't the jump scares, it was the lore. So you can understand why when the novels came out and offered what seemed to be simpler solutions, I hopped aboard. I started looking for more streamlined solutions within their pages, hunting for clues to the games in a place where they didn't exist, but kind of looked like they exist and probably should have existed but didn't exist. And the only thing I accomplished in the process was making things more complicated. So in all the time that FNAF 6 has been percolating in the back of Scott's mind brain, I've thrown out everything that I thought I knew about this series, and I've gone back to doing what I do best. Darn it. Basic counting. 1 Freddy button. 2 Freddy buttons. 1 Foxy toe. 2 Foxy toes. Only this time, I was aided by knowledge of where the series was headed, as well as Scott's latest release, The Freddy Files. It's a book that many others dismissed as merely an elongated strategy guide to the games, but to me, it was invaluable at filtering down years' worth of lore into the details that Scott himself deemed as the most important to focus on. And this entire process of starting at square one has helped me to see connections I'd never made before, enabling me to create the thing I was most scared of. A timeline. A series of events that explain key breadcrumbs that Scott has left for us along the way. And the more I looked, the more it all started to make sense. And that's the plan for this video, and spoiler alert, the next video, to create a final, definitive, lore-based theory on the insanity that is FNAF. Putting to rest the key lingering questions in the first 5 entries of this franchise and opening the door for Scott to usher in FNAF 6. Since, at this point, we all know he's just waiting for us to solve the previous games before he releases the new one.
I think this is gonna be the end of today. This was pain. Oh, what? Yeah, this was just me plain, just being like, hold on, I need to grab it. Which one do I need to grab? The view, and then we're gonna go to end stream. Boop boop, bop. All right. This was a complicating stream to do right now, cause this took me like, I don't know how long it took, but it took a while. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. No, I'm just gonna do it, and I started streaming. don't think streams are gonna come back. I'm just doing it like the part series again because all of Matpats or theories are done, so I can have like all of them put into like one big timeline, one big like kilometer of a stream. Yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.